A friend of mine came and asked me, do you mind if I give a rabbi your number? Very naively and not knowing what I was saying, I said, yes, why would I mind? So 20 years later, I've discovered why I would possibly mind. But to be honest, 20 years later, I found the involvement in a wide array of charities to be somewhat frustrating. I guess you can read Jewish politics into that, but incredibly fulfilling at the same time. The famous Winston Churchill quote that many of you would have heard me say again and again, of we make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give, has always resonated with me and helped me keep on track when philanthropic life gets that little bit frustrating. And the level of politics picks up to a level which is potentially not constructive. In thinking about what I was going to speak about tonight, apart from updating you on the community back in South Africa, I read something this past Shabbat in the sheet from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, the Covenant and Conversation sheet, which I think augments the Winston Churchill quote beautifully. And Rabbi Sachs wrote the following. He said, we can be good at many things, but what gives a life direction and meaning is a sense of mission, of something we are called on to do. So ladies and gentlemen, for better or for worse, I see my mission as being to encourage fellow Jews who are in a position to do so, to give, to do so generously, to do so now, and to do so in their lifetime. My preference is not to be connected to any one single cause, even though I do that from time to time, but as a passion to try and encourage and facilitate giving, and giving on two planes, which I'd like to now describe to you. The first is one which comes out of halacha, out of law, out of our obligation. From a Jewish perspective, we know that our obligation is to give a minimum of 10%. That's 10% of our disposable income. So I think most of us, when we think about it, immediately feel that we give that 10%. If we judge by the number of charity evening dinners and breakfasts and shul appeals by post or email, those knocks on the door, we feel inundated. It's a ceaseless ask. I feel that too. So in a way it feels that you must be giving more than the 10%. But I would urge you all to go and do your calculation. Calculate it properly. Take your income, your salaries, your bonuses, your dividend, your interest, your rental income, your capital gains. Add it all together. Times that by 10% and work out if you're getting to that number. I would wager that most people would come up short outside of this room. I have no doubt that everyone in this room is completely above that level. There's no doubt whatsoever. Very simply put, and it's my strong contention that if every Jew who took their charity remotely seriously simply gave their 10% and not 1 cent more, most Jewish causes would balance their books just fine. Unfortunately, that's not the case. There is another plane of giving that I find very interesting, and it's for those people who are fortunate enough to make enough money that they can spend as much as they want in their lifetime and not get through it, and possibly their kids can spend as much as they want in their lifetime and not get through it. In June 2010, 6 months before I last spoke at this function, the Living Pledge campaign was announced by Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, where they committed to giving most of their lifetime wealth away in their lifetime. As of 2017, I don't know what the 2018 number is, but as of 2017, so a few months ago, there were 158 people who'd all signed up to give the vast majority of their wealth away in their lifetime. Each one of them billionaires, each one accepting that the joy of giving and the benefit of giving in their lifetime was way better and ahead of giving after they were gone. But as a billionaire, you could easily counter that to do that is easy, because if you give the vast majority away, you've got so much left. And I agree. But even if you take a watered down version, I feel very strongly in the power of people doing that earlier in their lives rather than later. And thank God, many South Africans have made enough money, both in South Africa and abroad, to be in a position to do the same thing. You see, the idea of foundational giving in one's lifetime is a concept that I am passionate about. Harnessing the power of compound interest and compound returns for the long-term benefit of all causes makes complete sense, as does seeing the results and getting the reward in your own lifetime. In my or our specific instance, I can see it making a material positive impact on Jewish South Africa, if done properly and done now. I'm going to defer to a few slides now to build up my points. So before you sigh and groan and think this is already too long and how's he going to finish this in time, I'm going to be as quick as I can. One of the wonders of modern technology is you expect that when you arrive there's going to be a clicker available that you can just click. So my mate at the back is going to help me out, and I'm going to give a secret signal that every time I do this we're going to have to flash a slide and we're going to go through quite quickly. But what I'd like to do is give you a quick run through of a number of slides that are going to give you a sense of life in South Africa. My experience, my personal experience, is very much Joburg orientated. For those of you who are Cape Town orientated, or Durban orientated, or anywhere else in the country, tonight is not about discussing those elements. I'm going to use Johannesburg as a microcosm, but I'm going to give you a sense and give you a clue as to why I did say yes. So if we can actually talk to the slides. Right. This is the slide, and the next few are going to be from what I brought up in 2010. Okay, the slide behind me talks to the estimate of how much is spent by charitable organizations in South Africa. Do I need to duck down so everyone can see it? Okay. Now, the purpose of tonight's discussion is not to actually revisit this, but you can see, and I think this was a shock to people 7 years ago, that there's R750 billion that is spent in the community. You can see education, 250 million rand as an estimate, welfare 250, security 100, etc., etc. The fundraising requirement of 320 seems absolutely inordinately large. But the truth is, for every organization, the struggle is not that 320. The struggle is R1 million or 5 million rand. It's meeting that last bit every single year. So as much as we can look at that and feel helpless, I can tell you, for every single organization, every donation that comes in, at the margin, makes an enormous difference. We looked at the schools last time. This was the 2010-2011 slide. Okay. King David, which is the biggest day school in South Africa, with, as you can see, 3,400 pupils. There's an estimate of about 6,000 Jewish school children in Johannesburg. If we flip to the next slide, you can see the update, which shows that compared to 2010, there are almost the same number of kids in the school system. So people talk about immigration, people talk about things changing in South Africa. That number is a very similar number. The number of staff, Raylene, is more or less the same. I woke up late today to try and compare that number, so we weren't quite sure if it was below or above 500, but it hasn't changed dramatically. But look at what's changed. Look at the revenue that comes through and what's required to pay for those school children. But interestingly, if you look at the subsidy that is paid, 15 million versus 163 in 2010, that's less than 10%. And it's specifically set there. If you look at 2018 or 2017, going into 2018, you'll see again that number is less than 10%. So as much as you think they're massive subsidies, it's at that margin that the money is really needed. There are 511 school kids in King David receiving support. In Hertzley and Cape Town, that number is not dissimilar as a proportion. It's 1/6 of kids receive support. There are 47 kids, if you look right at the bottom, receiving full scholarships, and the rest of the 511 actually receive partial scholarships. I'm not going to dwell on this, but I think it is a sober reminder of how different things are in South Africa from the UK. I introduced you to CAP 10 years ago or 7 years ago. I'm not going to go into detail. If we flick to the next slide, it'll tell you what CAP is. It was really a security initiative. You can flick through all of them if you don't mind. Proactive anti-crime initiative that was set up combats crime, protects and saves lives, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was a solution of actually hiring mercenaries. The police force couldn't do it. Effectively, it was a case of creating, with the help of Israeli-based security, call centers, armed mercenaries to protect the Jewish community, and ultimately extended beyond the Jewish community to 100,000 residents. If you look at the numbers, you don't have to look at the numbers in great detail on the next slide. The stats are staggering, because you went from a situation where on the far right-hand side, you will actually see the average monthly contact crime stats. On the left-hand side of that is the monthly stats before. So to give you an example, in Greater Glen Hazel, you had an average number of contact crimes of 20 per month. That means that 20 times a month someone had a gun or a knife or something pointed at them. As a result of this initiative, that number of 20 a month dropped to 1.78. Now for us living in London, that seems like a ridiculous number. Imagine having 2 armed attacks in your neighborhood a month, we'd all be up in arms. But these are needs that the community has that we don't have in London. It's almost a tax that is not paid for by tax. So there's an additional burden on the South African community that comes as a result of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through these slides quite quickly. Saul, thank you very much for the slides. We ran this exercise 7 years ago where we had some interesting numbers. We looked at them in order to gain a sense of what the Chevra Kadisha does. So the Chevra Kadisha is the umbrella organization in Johannesburg that really looks after Jewish welfare. Okay? It encompasses the old age homes, it encompasses Selwyn Siegel, it encompasses Arcadia, the children's home, Jewish welfare. It's got the very broadest of mandates in terms of looking after welfare in South Africa. It's quite strange because here Chevra Kadisha means the burial society, so people don't understand the connection. But let's run through these numbers quickly, okay? We'll start with the small numbers and we'll get to the big ones. Two old age homes in Johannesburg. 3 cemeteries. Let's go. 22 children currently resident in Arcadia, the children's home. There are 57 children in daycare. 177 mentally ill clients receive support from the Chevra Kadisha. 190 full-time residents are in the disability division. 236 qualified care workers and nursing staff in the organization. 239 families receive assistance with accommodation. 266 workers currently in protected employment. 300 aged residents with no family in South Africa. 496 families receiving subsidy of living costs. 522 burials a year. 848 residents in the old age home.